This video is going to be all about how I gave WWE my release twice in 2013. And if you don't believe me, I have receipts. Don't forget I'm a lawyer. I ended my last video with losing to Ryback in a squash match on Raw when I had the #1 movie in America at the time. Technically, it was behind Disney, but they considered it #1. And it was advertised as the #1 thriller in America, The Call. It obviously was a shock to me considering, I'm in this movie with Halle Berry. I'm starring in this. My name is super high. My Q score has never been higher. My Q score was higher than my fiance's at the time. Legit. I took screenshots. It was probably the only time. So I'm in the #1 movie in America, Q score through the roof, and this is how they treat me. So that Tuesday, I fly home. Now I have to say this, I'm going to share some personal details in this video, but I'm going to try and be respectful. And so sometimes you're going to need to read between the lines, but I think you guys can all figure it out. I fly home, and during this time, just there had been a lot going on, with my family and my fiance, with her stuff that had happened with her family, a tragedy, previously. And we just went through a trial the year before. Again, I'll say it once for this video, but my fiance, my son's mom, was Jennifer Hudson. And anyway, so during this time, she had been traveling, but I had been on the road like crazy, for WWE, not just working and doing the live events, the pay-per-views, but also I was now promoting The Call, which had just come out. So I had been gone for nearly a month straight, and I hadn't seen her much. I tried to see her, but because she works a lot too and was traveling. Anyway, during that week, in speaking with her, she indicated to me, basically, I was given an ultimatum that if I left for work that Friday, that I wouldn't have a family to come home to. So I'll take you back to that morning. And it was Friday, I believe it was March 22nd, 2013. And my recently deceased cousin Brian, rest in peace, was traveling with me. So I used to take Brian on the road with me, and I started taking him on the road with me. So part of it at the end of New Nexus, sometimes he would ride with us, with Joe and I, and he was cool with Wyndham, with Bray Wyatt. He always called him Husky, no matter what. But Brian was around the boys a lot, and even Cena knew Brian. He gave him a nickname. Cena called him Entourage, because for a while that's what Brian was. He was like my shadow. And but part of the reason, if I'm being honest, was I needed him there as a buffer, because was starting to learn with all the backstage politics and stuff. I wasn't second generation, I didn't have siblings there. I didn't come up on the independent scene, and I had a target on my back because I was Punk from I Love New York too. So I needed somebody who was on my side with me, kind of to watch out for me, backstage and stuff. And Brian's my best friend. So I used to pay, for his travel. So I would pay for him to fly with me, on these loops, a lot of the time. He probably came with me 3 weekends out of the 4 each month. Anyway, on this particular day, we were flying out of Chicago O'Hare Airport. I believe we were on American Airlines, and I had been texting back and forth with my fiance. We'd been, on the phone, and things were pretty serious. And so, I'm trying to explain to her, I have to go to work, and talking to her and trying to be there for her. And she was coming in from somewhere because she hadn't even been home that weekend, and I had only been home for a couple days, and just switch out my clothes. And to the point where we were missing each other that Friday. So I had to leave before she even was going to make it to the house, with my son. And I remember, we got to the airport, and Brian could see something was wrong with me, and he's like, "Cuz, you okay?" And I told him, just going through some stuff. And I remember in the car stopping and saying a prayer real quick, just prayed real quick. And this was something serious. And we go and check the bags in. We go to the gate, and then finally, my fiance, I think she was on the plane. She lands, and then we're able to talk now because we've been texting. And like I said, basically given an ultimatum that if I got on that plane, I wouldn't have a family to come home to. And so I made the only decision I could make. I chose my family, and in hindsight, given everything that happened, it might have worked out better or differently if I had made another choice. But who I am as a person, even if I was back in that situation at that time, I'm going to choose my family. It just is what it is. That's just how I was raised. So I got off the phone with her and I called Jane Geddes, who was the senior vice president of talent relations at the time, and explained to her that without giving too many details, that there was a situation at home and I needed to spend some time with my family. And I'm really sorry, but I don't know how long it's going to take, but I need some time. And she was very nice about it, and talked to Paul Triple H, talked to him right away, and then called me right back and said, Paul said that's fine. They'll book somebody else in your place. I was supposed to be wrestling Zack Ryder, I believe, that loop. They said they could put somebody else in. Shout out to Zack Ryder, by the way. That's my guy, Matt Cardona. But anyway, they're going to put somebody else in, and that go ahead and take the time. And so then I remember, like, we had to go up to the counter. I had to ask if we can get our bags back, because like the plane was boarding and we didn't get on. That was the thing, is it was boarding. And so they said normally they don't, but they knew who I was at this time. We're in Chicago O'Hare, so I flew in and out of there twice a week, and they loved my fiance, so we're beloved in the city. They had somebody actually go on and get our bags, our luggage, and unload it for us. And so we went down to baggage claim, and I remember just this walk, like thinking, like, am I really doing this? Because it felt like, yeah, I was choosing my family against my career. And it's like, am I really walking away from this? Although, because I didn't know, like I said, that it was serious. So like I didn't know, like, if I was going to be able to come back, or what was going to happen. So I'm nervous about that too. And I remember Brian just talking to me, and it was weird because like we went down to baggage claim, and we got our bags. And I remember this guy came up to me, who I thought was like I guess I thought he was a fan or something. He knew who I was, and he said a prayer for me, real quick. And it was interesting because I thought he just wanted an autograph or something. And I have the video. of this somewhere, because Brian would record everything, and it was a fan interaction and whatever. I just remember thinking, man, this is just a really weird, just weird day and coincidences and stuff. Anyway, so Brian and I, depart. He goes his way, and I, drive back to my house. And I remember, by the time I got to my house, the locks were changed, and we had the door had glass. And I remember I could see my nanny inside, who was my ex's cousin, and she sees me at the door. I'm trying to get in, looks right at me, walks off. I'm like, okay. And I'm trying to, there wasn't an argument. Like, there wasn't an argument. That's what I'm trying to say. Luckily, my son, who was like 3 years old at the time, he sees me, Dad. He comes and lets me in. Now I'm in the house. I'm just giving context. And, for the weekend, I proceed to then, heal my family and, and be there. I'm not going to go into any more details. On March 24th, I send WWE an email and update them on the situation, and, tell them I'm not going to be able to make TV this week. And I would say that I'm going to need time off for the time being. And again, please accept my apologies, but I have to take care of my family right now. Thank you for understanding. Mark Carrano, replies, don't worry, Dave, just keep us updated. I will pull you from TVs now. Jane Geddes responds, David, we understand. I spoke with Hunter and he is fine. You taking the time. Take all the time you need as well. Take care, Jane. So they're very cool about it. So like I'm saying, they're very cool and understanding about it. Then WrestleMania is April 7th of that year, which was my birthday. And I was not at WrestleMania, which was, hey, this is my channel. I'll be honest. It was hard for me. So I've never told this. I want to talk about how I really felt. It was my birthday. Man, that would have been great to be at WrestleMania. They didn't have creative for me. Vince knew it was my birthday. Because, by the way, this is something I never told too, but to this day, Vince McMahon text messages me on my birthday and wishes me happy birthday. and has since then. And then like when Mania and that year, like I remember WrestleMania was on my birthday, and he mentioned what could be better, WrestleMania on your birthday, and it happened a few times. But that's something that would still happen. But anyway, things were healing at home, and we had a birthday party for me. My family was there, my fiance. It was nice. They had a birthday cake for me that had a poster of The Call on it. But I remember being at the birthday, and it's bittersweet. It's kind of painful, if I'm being honest, because I wanted to be at WrestleMania. Like that was my dream. But at the same time, I was there with my family, and I just remember thinking, am I making the right choice? But being there with everybody, I knew I was making the right choice, but it also was just tough because it was like I was made to choose between my dream and my family. And if I'm just saying, like, it was hard, and I was trying to do the right thing. And I felt it was unfair because I would never, ask my fiance to choose between her dream and family. There's more to it. It's more nuanced and complicated than that. But I'm trying to let you know, like, my mind state at the time. This was really, really difficult for me. And I remember at that birthday party, like, we didn't even watch WrestleMania, and but it was too painful, if I'm being honest. And I knew what was going on at the same time, and it was The Rock and John Cena too. Um, I had been in WrestleMania the year before. So granted, I had hoped to be in WrestleMania this year, but they didn't have any creative plans for me at the time. So even if I was, they probably would have put me in, some garbage match, but I would have still been happy, wanted to be there. That was my dream. And I remember what hurt me really bad was my nephew Michael at the time. He was really into it. And he would always go to WrestleMania. And I remember he was having a hard time understanding why we weren't going this year. And like one of his friends, Tommy too, like they they were there at my birthday party, but they just couldn't believe, like, why are we not at WrestleMania? And like I couldn't explain it to them. Like I can't get into how do I'm having a hard time explaining this to you guys, like, without getting into like personal details and stuff. But how do you explain that? And they're young at the time. But man, that one hurt. Um, so after this, around this time, again, I was in The Call, the number two movie in the country, number one, really, behind Disney. And there was a reality TV pilot that, they were shopping with me, and WWE had given permission. So, like, there was things I was doing outside of WWE. And I had been appearing on HLN during the Jodi Arias trial, covering that. And so while I'm at home, after my birthday, and, around about April 9th or so, things were getting a little bit better at home, where I was given an opportunity because the Jodi Arias trial was coming to an end. And let me put this in perspective again without saying too much. But during that time, I was home with my family. One of the things that you know, uh, one of the things that was soothing is if we all watched court TV together in this Jodi Arias trial, because everybody was into it. My fiance at the time, my ex included, and so, and people were. She was very proud that I was going on there and commentating, yada yada yada. And I got called about an opportunity where HLN wanted to fly me to Atlanta just for a day and fly me right back, because they built a mock set of the Jodi Arias crime scene, and they wanted me to do a reenactment with Vinnie Politan and like actually body slam him. It was an amazing opportunity. And so I was hesitant because what I was going through with WWE, and technically, like I was off the road to be with my family, and my ex was excited about it, and was kind of encouraging me to take the opportunity. And so it sounded cool. It was one day away. I said, okay, I accepted it. Um, I went and shot it. It was fast. It was really fun, and also they were respecting me, David Otunga, the person, the lawyer, and not the WWE character, the jobber. Like, this was different. It was completely outside of WWE, but like this was focusing on my talents and who I was before, I became a WWE performer. And it felt nice to be, respected for who I am and my accomplishments. And so I went and I did it, and I had a really good time doing it. They promoted The Call and WWE. Everything was good. Then on April 10th, I received the passive aggressive email from WWE, and it was Jane Geddes, and she said, David, hope all is getting better in your world. I wanted to touch base last night as I saw you appeared on HLN. So basically, she saw my HLN appearance, and she said that she was quite surprised because it was not soon after I'd gone home to deal with family, and she just was curious because she wasn't aware of it. She didn't know if WWE publicity was aware of it or not, and they would promote it. But she said also she didn't know how she felt about the optics of it, when I was on family sabbatical. But she said, please let them know what my plans are, for a foreseeable future. And to which the next day I responded, but let me tell you, during this time when I had been home with my family, I had to do a lot of reflection because again, I was being forced to choose between my family and my dream. And what I realized is I had to really do some soul searching during this time. And we just stayed in the house. It was a lot of time to think and reflect and stuff. And I was having to sacrifice a lot of time away from my family. And that's kind of the crux of what was going on at the time. And in my mind, it's worth it if I'm going to sacrifice that much time, it needs to be worth it for me and my dream. And if I'm being honest, I wasn't living my dream there, WWE. That was not my dream. They were not treating me creatively or in any way like a dream. Like when I'm there, it didn't feel good. Like at the end, it didn't. And at this time, it did not feel like a dream. It would be different if I was getting a push. If I was United States champion at this time, I might have made a different decision. Like it would have made more sense to me why I was spending this much time away from family. But given that, you never know how life is going to shake out. And, my fiance gave me that ultimatum at that time. I was not United States champion. I did not have a storyline at WrestleMania. I did have the number one movie in the country that was outside of wrestling, even though it was loosely related, but I came back and got squashed. That's what I had. That part was not my dream. And that's the part that was harming my family life, was that part keeping me away that was actually not my dream. So again, I received the email, Jane Geddes, saying they saw me on HLN, and she just wanted to talk to me about it. So here's my response. I'm sorry you feel that way. I never meant to overreach or do anything that would compromise things. As you are aware, I have been tending to my family at this time and remain doing so. We are dealing with a lot of difficulty right now. I have tried to inform you as much as I can about it while still respecting our privacy. I made a brief appearance on HLN, which allowed me to return home immediately to my family. I apologize if that caused any confusion in regards to my current situation, as it still remains precarious. The HLN appearance in no way, shape, or form belittles the severity of my family situation I'm dealing with. I have always strived to represent both WWE and myself in a positive, uplifting manner, and this appearance was no different. It was brief in nature, and therefore did not require me to be away for long. From your email, I understand this is causing difficulties, and in respecting the amicable relationship between us, I want to do the honorable thing and avoid keeping you in limbo while the resolution to my situation still remains unclear. Therefore, I do not feel that returning to WWE at the present time would be in either of our best interests. I want to thank you and the entire WWE for the opportunities you have given me and for being understanding and considerate. I sincerely apologize if I have caused any distress or complications and hope there aren't any hard feelings. Thank you again. Sincerely, David. 18 minutes later, Jane Geddes responds, David, thank you for the email. If possible, I would like to chat with you sometime today to discuss the future. Anytime between 11 a.m. and 2 p.m. works great for me. If not today, I am free much of tomorrow. Let me know what works for you and I will give you a call. Thanks. Jane. I spoke to Jane the next day, and basically she didn't want me to leave. WWE did not want me to leave. She said this came straight from Vince, that they saw value in me and would like to figure out a way to work with me, at least for the time being. Now, I had been doing a lot of the Be a Star rallies, which is WWE's anti-bullying campaign, and they asked if I would continue to do so. And so I did. So basically, I was not granted my release and I was remaining under contract on my downside, but I would just do, you know, local things or maybe fly out once a week or whatever it was, but mainly for these rallies or potentially a pay-per-view. Like I know they wanted me to come in and promote The Call at one point when it was being released on DVD. And I'll get to that. So I also want to mention the significance of that moment when I sent that email to WWE and essentially requested my release. And it's because I wrote that sitting at my mom's kitchen table and asking her for advice. And it was very reminiscent of years. I think it was about 6 years earlier it was 6 years earlier after I had finished I Love New York 2. I told the story how I was sitting at my mom's kitchen table, the same table, talking to her, and she had encouraged me to go in the next day and quit the law firm. And it was like I knew that was the right answer, but I needed to hear her say that. And then fast forward 6 years, I remember talking to her and telling her like how I felt and, kind of writing this email and then telling her this is what I want to say and running it by her and her telling me, yeah, like I think that's the right decision. And, it was me again, just needing to hear that from her. And I said, yeah, it was all I needed to hear. I think this is, because obviously, like I said, like I was nervous because this was my dream. I felt like I was being forced to give up on my dream. But then at the same time, it wasn't quite my dream. And so I wanted to make that clear. In the following phone call that I had with Jane Geddes, we talked and they expressed how they still wanted to keep me on and have me do things. And I agreed to it, but I also explained to her that, I need a creative direction in order for me to stay here. Like my character needs a creative direction and to be seen in a different light. Like I expressed, my frustration with just the booking and that, I basically explained to her that if I have to be away from my family this much, it needs to be worth it. And so she understood that. And so the plan was, I was going to stay home and, heal my family and remain off of TV until they had a creative direction. And in the meantime, while doing that, I was still working for WWE and doing their Be a Star rallies and other just philanthropy and PR events, which I did. So that was a situation. I was not booked on any TVs or anything, as there was no creative control. Fast forward to Father's Day 2013. And well, I'll just read you the email I sent. How about that? Hi, Jane. I received a message from Carrano on Tuesday saying that I was needed for Raw on June 24th. Then I received another message last night and this morning that I am needed for the pay-per-view on Sunday. I'm a little surprised as I was under the impression that I was off until the fall so that I may get things together. I understand The Call is released on DVD on Tuesday, June 25th, and I have no problem promoting the film the day before. However, this Sunday's pay-per-view happens to fall on Father's Day, and my family has gone out of their way to plan something special for me. If now at the last minute, I have to tell them that I'm not going to be there as I'm needed at the pay-per-view, that will not go over very well. This very situation is part of what caused the trouble in my family life in the first place. May I please find out from creative what exactly I'm needed for? If there's a way for me to come in early, film my part, and leave so that I don't have to ruin the family plans, if so, that could work out for both parties. As I tried to explain earlier, I've had to sacrifice a lot in terms of my family to follow my dreams in WWE. I'm well aware that this business requires a great deal of sacrifice, and I accept that and have given everything I have to it for the past 5 years. Those sacrifices have started to take a toll on my family. I think it's only fair that I be perfectly honest and candid here. The sacrifices I was making against my family for WWE were worth it for a long time. However, it started to come to a point where the payoff for the sacrifices just wasn't worth it anymore. I have never been one to complain or express my displeasure with anything. However, I must admit that I have not enjoyed the way my character has been portrayed for the past year. There was a long stretch of time there where I wasn't on TV for a month or more. It's hard to reconcile missing important family events from my dream when I'm sitting on the sidelines backstage at TV or in catering. More importantly, when I was used, it was in a capacity that depicted me as a loser. I understand a heel's job is to make the babyface look good. However, good heels win plenty of matches, which makes them even better and more believable heels. My character hasn't won a match in nearly a year. It got to the point that when people see me on TV, they already know I'm going to lose the match before I even set foot in the ring. One day this spring, my son said to me, "Dada, I like watching you wrestle, but I don't like it because you always lose." That statement sent a chill up my spine, as I never want my own son to see me as a loser. I'm nowhere near a loser in any aspect of my life, and I don't want that to become the perception of me to anyone. We are supposed to be independent contractors in this business, and therefore need to look out for our careers and personal businesses. My personal business extends beyond WWE and also reflects upon my family. I, along with my family, feel that the way my character has been portrayed for the past year is affecting my personal brand negatively. I have done the job every night, helping my colleagues reach their dreams, but that was never reciprocated to me. My dream was to be a champion in WWE, not a jobber who people already know is going to lose before he steps foot in the ring. Again, please don't take this the wrong way. I don't want this to be misconstrued. I'm not complaining, but rather trying to explain my current feeling and situation. My dream of becoming a champion in WWE still remains. However, there needs to be a fundamental change before I can again subject my family to those sacrifices I need to make for this business. It's really more of a question as to what's important to me at this point in my life. Spending precious time with my family that I will never get back, or jobbing to everybody in WWE. That never has been my dream. It's a different question when the alternative is actually following my dream and portraying me in a positive manner. Aside from this past year, I have loved my entire time at WWE, and I would love nothing more than to continue, but on the right path that is not negatively affecting me, my family, or my brand. However, if that is not possible, I have already come to terms with that result, and I harbor no hard feelings and will remain a lifelong WWE fan. Thank you in advance for taking the time to listen and for considering my position. Best regards, David. And very shortly thereafter, Jane Geddes responded, "David, totally hear you. And there was definitely a miscommunication here on your availability, re Sunday and Monday. Mark is going to call you in about an hour to discuss. As for your other concerns, I completely understand, and when you are prepared to return, it will be worth a conversation from all parties, from a creative and character perspective, to see if we can get your character moving in a more positive direction, even as a heel, exclamation. Take care and happy Father's Day, Jane." Shortly thereafter, I did receive a call from Mark Carrano, and Mark Carrano was basically forced to call me and apologize. And I don't even know if it was his fault, but he was the scapegoat because things are often miscommunicated, and somewhere along the line, lines got crossed, and they didn't know what the agreement was, with higher up level WWE management or with my situation, whatever it was. But anyway, he had to call in, apologize to me for that. So now I'm in a situation here where I'm advocating for myself for the first time and in a major way. And it kind of goes back to what I learned from John Cena. And it isn't even so much what he was, I don't know if what it was what he was trying to teach me, but I learned from just watching how things work there at WWE. And so for the first time, I was advocating for myself. In essence, I told them that if I'm not going to be booked in a more positive manner, I'm walking away from this because I'm no longer going to sacrifice my family to be a jobber here. And I stuck to my guns. People don't know that. People have never heard this because a lot of people assume I was fired or I was told or encouraged not to work in the ring anymore. You couldn't be further from the truth. In fact, it's the exact opposite. But it was me, putting my foot down and saying, I'm not going to go on like this because this is affecting my personal brand. I don't want people to start associating me with losing. And again, especially if you listen to the email I read earlier, if you read between the lines, I'm trying to tell you what happened without, with respecting privacy, but you read between the lines, it's in here. You can figure it out. So anyway, yeah, shout out to John Cena for that. I eventually got the message and learned to advocate myself, although in a much nicer, more professional manner than Cena, calmer, quieter, but nonetheless, still stood up for myself and was assertive. So now at this time, I kind of have WWE working for me on my own terms because the reality is once I already told them and once I came to the point in my mind where I was done and I was ready to walk away, that gave me incredible leverage because now, again, I had stuff popping outside of WWE. I was acting. I had a reality show that was being shopped and there was a legal show being shopped. I had a number of things going on at this time. So WWE knew that. And they knew I was valuable. So basically, I was given the option of I could either be on the road for 200 plus days a year and make maybe 3 times my downside, or I could be at home and maybe work once a month, but also be given the freedom to explore these other opportunities in entertainment and make my downside. That's a much more attractive option to me. Now, not for other talents, and I understand that, but I wasn't your typical talent. I had a name for myself before I came in, which is why I had so many other opportunities outside of WWE. WWE was something it was a passion of mine and a dream, but part of it was for me, I never needed to be there. I didn't have to be there, but I was there because I was pursuing a dream of mine. And that's kind of the crux of this is once I had to make an ultimatum, it's I had to make that choice at that moment. Is this my dream? Is this actually my dream that my family is suffering for? Is this actually my dream? And it wasn't. I was still holding on to, this hope that, it would eventually become it if I just put in enough time. But I had to weigh things, and that time away from my family just wasn't worth it. During this time that, I'm away from the ring and still representing WWE, I'm doing their Be a Star rallies, the anti-bullying rallies. I've always been a lifelong bodybuilding fan. If you don't know, go back and check out my videos all the way back to when I worked out with Ronnie Coleman when I was still in law school. I was a 3L. That video's up. Shout out to Big Ron. Ain't nothing but a peanut. Lightweight, baby. My Ronnie Coleman impersonation, not as good as my JB Noble, apparently. But anyway, during this time, I was approached by Muscle and Fitness to be a cover star. This was awesome to me. Let me just explain this to you. growing up, that's part of how I got into, muscles and bodybuilding. But growing up, my mom used to take me to the grocery store by our house. It was called Eagle. And while she was checking out, the magazine aisle was right there. And I used to see Muscle and Fitness, and the physiques on there were amazing. And particularly Arnold was on there. And I remember looking at that like, wow, I would love to look like that. But those guys looked like superheroes. So then fast forward to being offered to be on that cover. This was one of the greatest things that, I could ever be offered. To me, this is better than being on the cover of whatever major magazine you can think of, People magazine or Time. No, Muscle and Fitness, especially because where I came from with my body goals, we'll talk about that later, but like this meant a lot to me and for my confidence. Anyway, I booked Muscle and Fitness, and then I eventually get a call from the editor-in-chief of Muscle and Fitness, Sean Perrine. Just a few months later, and he tells me, "Hey, David, I'm really sorry to tell you this, but between you and me, somebody from WWE called me, and they don't want you to be on the cover anymore. They wanted us to put a different superstar on the cover." And he said, "This put me in a really bad spot because I'd already promised it to you." And he said, "I really like the way your physique looks, and I would prefer you on the cover, like your aesthetics." And he's like, "You earned it." But he's like, "I just want you to know," he goes, "I don't want to start any trouble. I don't want to say anybody's trying to sabotage you, but I do want you to know that they called and they suggested another superstar for the cover and said, we want to push this person instead of David Otunga." I was heated. I sent an email. I probably have it in my phone. I looked through it. I sent an email to WWE PR, and the long and the short of it was it eventually got back to Vince, so I hear. And Vince, I guess, didn't know this and heard about it and said, "No, absolutely not. Don't take that away from David Otunga. Let him have his cover. Don't take that from him." And I know that because then later I ran into Sean Perrine at the Mr. Olympia contest, and we talked again, and it was like, I guess 2 days later, he must have reached back out to WWE, whatever it was, but it had gotten to Vince, and he let me know that they told him, no, that let David have his cover. So he got to give me the news that I was still doing the cover. And I shot that Muscle and Fitness cover. And as you see, it's up there behind me. It's a screensaver on my phone. Like, I'm that proud of it, just because it reminds me, it shows me I can accomplish anything. Because takes me back to that time, looking at that, like that seemed unbelievable to me. And I did it. So it means a lot. But anyway, again, just trying to show you, like, I was doing well for myself outside of wrestling, and to make the Muscle and Fitness cover. Because the other thing of it was, sometimes WWE will push people to Muscle and Fitness and put them on the cover. Nah, that's not how I got it. I earned it by always being at Mr. Olympia, the Arnold Classic, and then being in and around bodybuilding enough where they liked my physique, the right people saw me, and offered it to me, which was amazing. Now let's fast forward to October 2013, and by this time, I've been talking with WWE a bunch, and the situation is I'm at home, doing things outside of the ring for them, the Be a Star rallies, philanthropy events, you name it, while they're supposed to be coming up with creative for me. And then once we agree on creative, then I can go back to TV. But I'm waiting to discuss that with them. And they always say they're working on it. All right, well, I'm letting that go, and I'm fine at home at the time. So then, just to let you know what kind of time I was on October 17th of 2013, I sent this email. This was to Jane and Mark Carrano. "Hi guys, I saw that I'm needed for Raw this Monday. I just wanted to check in with you to see what the story is for my character, what I'll be doing on Monday's show so I can prepare. Please let me know. Thanks, and see you soon." Because clearly, I know there is no storyline, so we haven't discussed creative. I've been asking for this. So why would you now just tell me, "Here, be here. You summoned me to be here. Wait a minute. This isn't what we talked about." So immediately, Mark Carrano responds, "Sorry, Dave. Mistake by travel. Not needed as of now." Now you know he's lying. So I responded, "Haha, are you sure? I was all ready to come too. Glad I checked. Okay, if I'm not needed, I'm going to go ahead and make other plans. Thanks." I'm telling you, there's something about having the leverage when you're ready to go. When you're ready to quit something, boy, that's a lot of power. That's a lot of power. Now, if you fast forward to April 6, 2014, it's WrestleMania 30. And my family situation had improved a good bit in the past year. As you remember, previous WrestleMania 29 was on my birthday, and I missed that. So now my situation had improved, and WWE booked me to go to Access at WrestleMania 30, which I would do some meet and greets and some autograph signings. So I booked travel for Brian, Entourage, and Brian and I flew out there to Access. And we were there, it was probably Friday. And I remember that I get a call from Carrano, and he tells me, "Hey, Dave, you're booked in the Battle Royal on Sunday." And I'm like, wait, what? Wait. Number one, we didn't talk about creative. I'm not even getting into that, but I'm like, okay, but I don't have my gear with me. And it's explained to me that, yeah, I'm not on TV, but they wanted to do something for me, which would be cool. But I explained to them, I don't have my gear with me. And then Carrano shoots back at me and says, well, Triple H said he better find some gear. All right. So this is Friday. WrestleMania is Sunday. You can't just get custom gear made like that. I don't have anything with me. I can't fly home and get it and be back. Like that's tricky. So how do I get out of this? So I called my niece, Tisha, thankfully, and my other niece, Kylie. And then they came and they went and they got my boots for me, my gear, and then flew to New Orleans to bring it to me, which was a lifesaver. And then I brought them to WrestleMania as well. So fast forward to the day of Mania, I have my gear. I made sure I went and found Hunter. And Hunter was in the back, like by the trainer's room, and he was pumping up and oiling up. I made sure I went right by him in my gear, full regalia, oiled up, pumped up. I looked over at him just so he saw me, and I knew he saw me. We nodded to each other. And he was like, I see you got some gear. It's like, yep. Anyway, Battle Royal was cool. And after that, I remember after the show, going up to Hunter backstage and just thanking him for everything. And I remember he told me, he's like, hey, Dave, he's like, we appreciate everything that you've been doing for us, for now. And he's like, look, whenever you're ready to come back to the main roster, he's like, we'll plug you right in. Just let us know. And I said, thank you, Paul. And I was like, hey, listen, I'll take you up on that. And I said, but first, I want to request something. I would like to go down to the PC and train for a while, while creative is being sorted out. But before I come back, I want to go spend some time training at the PC. So in the next video, we'll pick up on my time when I did go down to Orlando and spend time training at the PC.